All right, hopefully the lesson for yesterday was pretty good for everybody on customary measurement. Today we're going to kind of switch gears a little bit. Instead of talking about customary measurement, we're going to talk about metric. The lesson is relatively the same, we're just going to be using different numbers. I will tell you that I prefer metric system over customary, so hopefully that's the same for you. Let's go ahead and get started. So 6.6 is on metric measurements. Our learning target is relatively the same thing that we had yesterday, but we're going to use metric measurements instead. So a metric system is a base 10 measurement system. This actually makes it much more user-friendly than customary because all of the numbers are based off of the number 10. For example, the numbers that we'll be using are 1, 10, 100, and 1,000. So we're still going to measure the same three things: length, capacity, and mass. You notice that the word mass is different than the word weight, but it does represent the same thing. Mass is what we call the metric system for weight. So for length, we're going to talk about millimeters, centimeters, meter, and kilometers. For capacity, we're going to talk about milliliters, liters, and kiloliters. And for mass, we're going to talk about milligrams, grams, and kilograms. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to match our units with an appropriate item so we can get a vision of what we're talking about. So millimeters. Millimeters are really small length, or a really small distance, and that is actually the thickness of a dime. It's really tiny. A centimeter is the next step up. I like to tell people that a centimeter is like from your pinky knuckle to the tip of your pinky, and that's about the width of a paper clip. Okay? Now a meter is pretty close to a yard, and that's going to be the height of a chair. A meter is actually a little bigger than a yard. And then a kilometer, that's pretty close to a mile, but it's actually less than a mile. So instead of 15 football fields, that's actually going to be 9. All right? So capacity. Remember, capacity is how much space something takes up. So a lot of times we think about liquid when we talk about capacity. All right? So actually, you know what? I'm now seeing that there's a typo on here. So we're actually going to use these right here, and we're going to match them with this one down here. So a milliliter is like a full eye drop. All right, so like your an eyedropper, that's a milliliter, so it's really small. A kiloliter, or a liter is a large bottle of water. Okay, not a normal sized bottle of water, a large bottle. So think about those big pop bottles, those are called 2 liters. So think about a half of that. And then a kiloliter, those are huge. That's 8 large trash cans. Okay. All right, now grams, that's mass. I'm going to change my color here to make this a little easier since I have a typo on this page. We're going to match those ones on the bottom to those ones in the middle. So a milligram is really small. That is like the weight of a grain of sugar. That's how small that is. It's really tiny. Now a gram is still pretty small. That's like a small paper clip. And then a kilogram, that's pretty heavy. It's pretty similar to a pound, a little heavier than a pound. That's going to be a textbook. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do some converting using our conversion factors, which is the same thing that we did yesterday. So in number 1, I'm comparing millimeters to centimeters. I'm starting with 115 millimeters, and it's I don't know how many centimeters. So I want millimeters on the top, and I want centimeters on the bottom. Now if we go back up to the top, I'm going to find out that for 1 centimeter, there's 10 millimeters. So those are the two numbers I'm going to use, 1 and 10. So 1 centimeter and 10 millimeters, making sure that I keep this organized. Now I can go ahead and I can cross multiply. X times 10 is 10x, and 1 times 15 is 115. Now I need to get rid of that 10, so I'm going to divide by 10 on both sides. Those cancel out, and x equals 11 and a half centimeters. All right, moving on to number 2. Number 2, my two things I'm comparing are kiloliters and liters. I'm starting with 9.25 kiloliters, and it's I don't know how many liters that is. So I'm going to go up to the top, and I'm going to find a conversion factor for kiloliters and liters. Here it is right here. 1 kiloliter is 1,000 liters. So 1's on the top and 1,000's going to be on the bottom. Now I can go ahead and I can cross multiply. X times 1 is just X. And 9.25 or 9 and 25 hundredths times 1,000 is 9,250 liters. So I really like the metric system because really what we're doing here is just moving the decimal point. I don't need a calculator to do these problems. All right, number 3. I have 100 grams and kilograms, so I'm comparing grams and kilograms. So my grams are going to stay on the top, and that's going to be 100. And I don't know how many kilograms that is. So I need to go up to the top, and I need to find a conversion rate for grams and kilograms. Here it is right here. 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So 1,000 is going to go on the top, and 1 is going to go on the bottom. So we're going to cross multiply. X times 1,000 and 1 times 100. So I end up with 1,000x equals 100. We're going to divide by 1,000. And x equals 0.1 kilogram. There's our answer. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is actually it for our lesson for today. It's pretty similar to yesterday's, so if you did a good job with yesterday's, today should be pretty easy. Again, there are 2 IXLs to do. T2 is probably a little easier than Z17. Notice, please, that the Z17 is in 5th grade. As always, don't forget to message me on Schoology if you need anything. Peace, guys.